Welcome to Half a Point, the podcast that is watching the film from all the preseason games so that you don't have to. I am joined, as I will be every week, by my co-host, Carlton superfan, Cuss. Cuss, how many preseason games have you watched?
Watched half the Carlton one. That's about it.
Oh, couple injuries on the Carlton front, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it in
Yeah.
today's episode. Today we'll be breaking down all 10 Victorian team regular season win totals, over-unders, and then by next week's time, we'll be breaking down the lines for opening round. So all four games there, and then from then onwards, we'll be breaking down the lines for every single game and giving our picks. So, as a reminder, if you're new to the channel, and I'm sure there'll be a few new viewers, as I said last episode as well, um, please leave a like on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and as I said, we're now active on the socials, on TikTok, on X, on Instagram. You've probably seen us around, so please give us a follow on those, and also a reminder to please gamble responsibly. All right, Cuss, diving into the Victorian teams here, the teams that, only teams that can actually win the Premiership here, if we're being honest. Like, yeah, cute. Brisbane won last year, whatever. They were versing another interstate team.
Yeah.
We all know the grand finals at the MCG. The Victorian teams are heavily favoured, usually, to win the Premiership. So that's the lens we'll be dealing with. I have a huge Premiership pick, which I teased last year. I kept you all waiting to see who's this guy going to pick as his Premiership pick. It's a surprising one, and we'll get to it very shortly. But I guess we'll start with Carlton. Did you want to run through the ins and outs, Cuss?
Yeah, so not too many changes. So they brought in Nick Haynes to help their defensive stock. But they've also traded out Matt Kennedy and Matt Owies. So midfielder and a small forward there.
Yeah, exactly. So, their line is 14 and a half. It's juiced to the under. So last year they went 13 and 10 and finished in eighth position. So they just snuck into the finals after upsetting actually West Coast at the end there. Although they lost to St Kilda. Freo didn't get the memo and they got through, and then they got pumped by the eventual premiers
Yeah.
Brisbane. So 14 and a half casts, where you going?
It's a tough one because I've been thinking, for a few months they're gonna lock away maybe 15, 16 wins. But then, came the injury to Nick Newman, which is a huge hole to fill. And he plays his role perfectly, and it definitely changes things up a lot. Um, and then obviously we had our new draftee do his ACL in the sim match, which is not what you want to hear for a first year player. I think there's a lot that's already gone wrong at Carlton. I think, yeah, just before
What's
the
new?
season's even started, like just injuries have piled up. That does change in does change how they want to play the game. But yeah, like it, I think the Blues will be able to win about 14 games. So I think they'll be in the top eight, but they'll be hitting the unders here. And I'm sure you'll be able to find a few lines out there at 13 and a half. So yeah, just see where you can go there.
All right. So lots of turmoil at the Carlton Football Club. Obviously, a bit of pressure on Vossi. I'd say a bit of pressure on Vossi. If you don't make finals this year, a bit of pressure on Vossi. Jagger does his ACL. A few injuries floating about. A little bit of chatter heading into this season. Give me Carlton to win the Premiership in season 2025. Man, I don't know why you're laughing, man. This is your team. I'm a Carlton backer this year. It's the perfect spot for the Blues. Let's think about it. You guys made a surge in the finals a couple of years ago and then took a little bit of a step back last year. You were second for a while there before you threw it all away. But now this is the year. You guys have the reigning Brownlow medalist in your midfield. You have Volshy. You guys have pillars in your forward half, your back half. You have Wiedering, and then you have Cripper. Obviously, if if Wiedering goes down, I generally don't think you guys can win the Premiership. Assuming the health of your core sort of 5, 6 players, I guess you could say that for most teams, but assuming they're all healthy, give me Carlton to win the Premiership. I'm smashing the overs here. I've bet them to be the minor premiers. As I said, they're a Victorian team, so you can bet their Premiership odds pretty much for all the teams we're discussing today, except for a couple at the bottom. But man, I'm loving the Blues this year. I know you might be saying, "Oh, Dilshan, you're emotionally hedging because your co-host is a Carlton supporter and you're a Collingwood supporter." No, 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 no. Nah, nah. I'm not emotionally hedging. I'm being genuinely serious. I put money on this. Yeah, give me Carlton over 14 and a half. I'm hammering the overs. As Cuz said, yeah, you can find 13 and a halfs out there as well. It'll be juiced to the over, but I'm taking the 14 and a half. I don't care what the line is really. I'm expecting them to win 16 plus games this year. So love the
Love to
Blues
hear it.
there.
Love to hear it.
Does that make you a little bit more optimistic or
I don't know, man.
no?
I'm like traumatized from the injuries of last year.
Yeah, that's
Um,
fair enough.
Feels
That's
like a
fair
bit of a
enough.
curse, but no, we'll see. We'll
Yeah,
see.
we'll see. Maybe a bit of regression. All right, that's okay. That's my big call for the pod. Um,
Nice and early.
Nice and early. That's why I wanted to preface it right at the start. All right, moving on to my team, the Pies. The line's 13 and a half. The juice is on the under. Last year we went 12, 9, and 2, so two draws there. Finished in ninth position, just missing out on the eight. We weren't really in a position in round 24 to make the eight anyway, not realistically at least. Cast, do you want to run through our ins and outs?
Yeah, good bunch of ins here. So Harry Perryman, Dan Houston, and Tim Membry. So, I feel like you've gone a few years without that tall key forward. But now Tim Membry, I think, will be able to help out around there. And traded out John Noble. So yeah.
Yeah. This is a bit of a tricky one. 13 and a half. I was initially leaning over. I'm still gonna say over, but just it's well, firstly, I don't really see this team having, that slow start that we had last year. And we're just so good situationally that I just trust us to win a couple extra games that we're not meant to win. That's sort of what tipped me over the edge. Otherwise, I'm not sure this team really qualifies for that Geelong bounce back where they had that down year and then they shot back up last year. You can apply that same theory to us this year. But like we had the Premiership, then we went down a bit. We expect us to surge, so I don't hate the overs on instinct, but I'm just not sure that we have the list for it. Yeah, we have a couple stars, destination club, all that. We're going to have a lot of fans at the games. They're going to be a big home ground advantage. As I said, I don't expect us to have that slow start again, but yeah, the number's a little bit fishy, 13 and a half. I was almost expecting it to be like around 14 and a half plus. But yeah, it's the number's a little bit suspicious. I'm just going to go over, but not with a great deal of confidence. How about yourself?
Yeah, another one that I was like really uncertain about. On one hand, like you look at their starting 23 and you're like, wow, this is a contending side, but I just don't think that there's a lot of depth there. The list is a aging one. And if there's injuries to any of like your core players or, even a couple like half forwards, they're I don't think they have the depth to cover that sort of injury. So yeah, but like you said, they've got brilliant leadership, and a really good coach as well. So I've gone with the overs without much confidence. Like you said, they shouldn't have a bad start like that. But yeah, we'll see how they go.
Yeah, exactly. So we went 3 and 9 ATS last year at neutral venues, so pretty much at the G. So don't really expect that to continue. The rest are pretty stock standard and average. So that's the outlier, which I think will sort of regress to the mean a little bit more. Again, we did end up winning 12 games at the end of the day last season with
Mm.
a couple of draws as well. So a couple of things go away. Could get to 13 and 14. So I do think we just get over here this year. All right, moving on to Essendon. If you're new to the channel, they actually call me the Essendon Whisperer. I get every single Essendon pick right. So if you want an Essendon pick, just follow what I say, and you'll be printing money essentially. So they were the definition of mediocre last year. 11, 11 and 1 was their record. They finished in 11th place, just as boring as you can get. Cast, you want to go read their ins and outs and then go through your pick as well.
Yeah, no notable ins for the Bombers, but yeah, we've obviously seen Dyson Heppel retire, Jake Stringer get traded, and Nick Hind leave the team as well.
Yeah, so before you give your pick, their line is 9.5 wins for the year, and the juice is on the over. So where are you going?
Yeah, so I'm going on the unders here. Um, Another common enemy of ours as well. So yeah, but 9.5 is really low. But it's also understandable. I think a lot of experience has come out of the team. Like I just mentioned, Heppel, Stringer, and Hind. Keep in mind, Stringer kicked about 40 odd goals for them last year. Um, and from what I've seen, I don't even think Essendon fans really have much hope for their team. They're all saying that they're going to miss the eight. They're in a rebuild phase. So. Yeah, take what you want from it. Gonna say under 9.5 wins.
Yeah, right with you. I'm going under 9.5 as well for Essendon. Yeah, like you said, this number's low, but it's low for a reason. This team, so yeah, the last couple of years, they always get off to pretty good starts and always near the top of the ladder, and then they just find a way to fall off. Um, that's just because they're not a good team. They won a lot of games away from home last year as well. I'm thinking the Adelaide game. They also beat the Giants at home, which is pretty impressive. They beat Collingwood as well during the season. They beat some good teams. I just don't trust this team. I feel like Brad Scott will be in the hot seat. I feel like they're going to be in a rebuild. I'm looking at a bottom six side definitely here. Um, yeah, this Essendon side just doesn't really have a lot going for them. They have, I feel like next year maybe, I'd be looking to buy low on Essendon. If you have a really poor season this year and win like I don't know, 9 games, then yeah, next year could be the year where they take a little bit of a step and maybe make it into finals. But this year's not really a year for Essendon. They had a lot of wins last year, which they probably won't have this year. So I'm going unders as well. All
Yeah.
right, moving on to the Cats. Their line is 13.5. The juice is on the over. They went 15-8 last year, finished in third, and just went out in the prelim to the reigning premiers at the G. That was probably one of the games of the season. This team had a down year in 23 after winning the Premiership in 22 and then surged in 24. So they've sort of completed their arc. So where are they going this year? Again, I'm not sure. Just like Collingwood, 13.5 is a little bit of a sharp number. For me, I'm going to lean over 13.5 wins for Geelong. Um, this is a bet on the coach, Chris Scott. He's just proven it year after year. It's almost like a blind one. It's almost like if you watch the NFL, like Mark Tomlin and the Steelers, like their win totals at 8.5 every year. And every year people are like, this is the year to bet the under, and every year he goes over. So just applying that same principle here to Geelong. It's a good coach. It's going to win you a couple of games just by himself. So give me the over 13.5. What do you think?
Yeah, I think like you said, Geelong is one of those teams that you just can't ever really count out. Chris Scott, one of the best coaches we've seen in a while. They've done well in the trade period, so they've brought in Jack Martin and Bailey Smith. And they've obviously lost Tom Hawkins, Zach Tui, and Gary Rowan. Um, they're playing 10 games at GMHBA this year, we know how well they perform over at their home ground. Their forward and defensive mix is still really strong. So yeah, I've gone on the overs here. I think we can look forward to another strong year from the Cats.
Pretty interesting. You mentioned GMHBA. They actually went 3-6 as home favorites against the spread last year, so they weren't that good. But they still finished in third. So
Hmm.
yeah, interesting. They went really well away from home. They went 4-1 ATS away from home. So yeah, quite interesting there. think of GMHB as a fortress, but maybe week to week we might fade them there because
Yeah.
of the extra value we're getting. But yeah, as you said, they don't typically lose a lot of games there, and they always manage to pick someone off the street and then turn them into a star somehow. So
Mm.
they're just so good at development. It's a good club, good culture. Give me the overs there. All right, moving on to the Hawks. Their line is 14 and a half wins for the season. They went 14 and 9 last year. Sneaking into finals after starting 0 and 5. Cuss, where are you going with the Hawks?
Um, well, Hawks are one of my favorite picks last season. They brought in Tom Barras and Josh Battle, so really improved their defensive line there. Um, and they had 14 wins last year after starting 0 and 5, which is incredible. And what was so dangerous about them last year was that they were so daring with the ball and moved it so quick, and teams sort of struggled to find a way to counter that. And yeah, fun to watch. One of the more exciting teams that we saw. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of these guys. So maybe not a surprise to you, but I'm going on the overs here, and I'm picking a top four finish for these guys. Jumping on the hype here.
Just a terrible pick. Just an terrible pick, mate. This is the public darling of the NFL, the Hawks, the mighty Hawks. Everyone's on the Hawks. Mate, this is a young team as well. Everyone's been telling them how good they are. You think the young team's just been feeling this themselves over the offseason? Mate, give me under 14 and a half wins for Hawthorn. Look, don't get me wrong. I think this is a good team and they're going to win a lot of games and they're going to play finals. Okay, I don't think they're going to miss the eight. Um, I'm not going to be sort of too critical on them, but I'm just playing the numbers here. 14 and a half is quite inflated. I just think we're getting an extra game or two here. If it's 12 and a half, it's probably lean overs, but just playing the numbers here, they're not like you're gonna give all these teams a whole off season to break these guys film down. Like they sort of caught everyone by surprise last year. You give these guys some time, they'll find a way to adjust. Yeah, this team is just the public darling. Like they brought in a couple of keys and they are quite good players, but I just can't get to the number 14 and a half. That's a lot of wins for a team that hasn't really proven themselves too much. Yes, I know they went on a crazy run last year, but as I said, they're a young team, and I do believe in them to make the finals. And let's see how much damage they can do. But I genuinely do believe that their Premiership window opens next season. So I'll be on them next season probably. But yeah, this season, give me under 14 and a half for Hawthorn. You're just riding the train. Look, last season, I kept trying to fade Hawthorn and you were on them every week. And I
Yeah.
kept being wrong until that Port Adelaide game right at the end. But we'll see
Mm.
how this year pans out. But yeah, give me the unders for Hawthorn. All right, moving on to Melbourne, whose line is 11 and a half. The juice is on the over there. They went 11 and 12 last year and they finished in 14th. Give me the over 11 and a half wins for Melbourne and give me Melbourne to make the top eight. Mate, I love this Melbourne team. This team is being just count out and left for dead. They had the year from hell last year, a bunch of scandal, the Clayton Oliver stuff, the Petrarca thing, mate, a bunch of stuff happened last season, and then they still managed to win 11 games. They had the season from hell, 11 and a half's really, really good value here. Yeah, give me the overs. This team was like sort of challenging for top four spots for multiple seasons prior to last year. So I just think there's not that much noise coming out of the Melbourne camp this off season. I just think they're primed to sort of surge back into that top eight contention. They're not really a premiership threat for me. But as I said, just like Carlton, they have pillars in the back line, midfield, and their forward line. So maybe a bit thin in their forward line, but still promising young players. They got a lot of games into the younger guys last season. As I said, they had the season from hell and won 11 games. So I just don't. This is again, we're playing the numbers here 11 and a half. I'm getting a bunch of value on the over. Give me over 11 and a half for Melbourne and give me Melbourne to make the top eight. Where are you going?
Love it. Love what you said. Yeah, I think they will be definitely contending the top eight. They'll have Van Rooyen and Frisch up front, with Pickett running around at their toes. So definitely a dangerous forward line. And we know Stephen May and Jake Lever can easily do their job down back. Like you said, a lot of off-field issues last year with obviously Petrarca. There was obviously the whole trade thing going on, Oliver with his injury, and then the whole scandal. But yeah, I think they'll have a huge preseason, and then just come back to where they were before last year. So going with the overs for this one.
Yeah, exactly. Love it. Like this is pretty stock standard. The team that's just been count out, and
Mm.
they're just gonna make the eight. Again, they're a Victorian team, so advantage there. All right, moving on to North Melbourne. Their win total line is 6.5. The juice is on the under. They went 3-20 last year and finished in 17th. Cuss, where are you going?
Um, Yeah, I've gone with the unders here. I'm predicting 6 wins. I like what they've done in the off season, bringing Caleb Daniel, Jack Darling, just a little bit of experience in coaching, Luke Parker as well. Out goes Hugh Greenwood and Liam Shields. But yeah, I definitely brought in a bit of experience, but by no means will it be an easy season. I don't think they'll get out of the bottom four. But I think they'll find a way to 6 wins if they're, experienced players can stay fit. Yeah, on the unders. What about you?
Yeah, interesting one. Also, a little bit difficult for me to sort of handicap these guys. Give me the under 6.5. I agree with you. I think they're going to land on probably 5-6. Why is this line 3 games higher than where they finished last year? Like, they were 9-14 ATS last year, so they were one of the worst teams coming in, and they still managed to underperform. But somehow, everyone's sort of saying that they're going to take a step this year. I'm not really sold. Mate, if they have another bad year, what's the Clarko chat going to be? Was he just
Mm.
coaching a stacked team at Hawthorn? And is he just not as a good a coach as he is perceived to be? I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, this North Melbourne team, managed to underperform last year. Yes, they had a lot of those close games which they just lost. Thinking the one to Collingwood where they blew the 54-point lead, the Melbourne as well, and West Coast at the end there, in Launceston where they just were narrowly beaten. Um, this is not a good team. This is not a winning culture. I know it's only 6.5. It's a pretty low number, but yeah, give me the under here. I just don't trust this team. They're not great situationally. A lot of young players. Yeah, maybe they do take the step, but I need to see it to believe it, just like Gold Coast. So give me the under 6.5 here with not too much confidence, but yeah, just playing the numbers once again. All right, moving on to Richmond. His win total is 2.5, which is insanely low. The
Yeah.
juice is on the over. They went 2-21 last year and obviously finished with the wooden spoon. Um, they also were 9-14 ATS. They managed to beat Sydney last year, which is insane, and my beloved Adelaide Crows as well. But that's last year's Adelaide Crows, not this year's Adelaide
Yeah, yeah.
Crows. Give me the under 2.5 for Richmond again. I know this might be a little bit of a public side, but I just can't see where they're winning a game from. I know they're professional athletes. They're gonna find a way to win a game or two, but three, I just can't. Like, who are they beating? Like, if North Melbourne's meant to take a step, if West Coast their line's at 6.5, like there's such a even big disparity between their win total line 2.5 to the next worst, which is North Melbourne at 6.5 or 5.5.
Mm.
So, like, I don't really see where this team's beating other team. Like, it'll happen. Like, they're gonna have some crazy upset win over someone we're not expecting. But it's just so hard to fathom.
Yeah.
Which is why I just can't go over it. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, agree. They've lost a bunch of players here. So Liam Baker, Shy Bolton, Dylan Grimes, Dustin Martin, Marlon Pickett, Daniel Rioli, Jack Graham.
Yep.
Lot of players going
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
They've brought in a bunch of kids from the draft. Definitely a wooden spoon lock here. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
That's actually
for
not that
sure.
crazy. Yep.
Yeah,
That's
I
actually not that
know.
crazy.
Odd
Sorry.
reaction.
Sorry.
Um,
Hey, Essendon, never know.
hopefully, hopefully. I'm not entirely a fan of their coach. They are playing Eagles and North twice, so maybe they can sneak in a couple wins here or there, but it's just hard to sort of figure out, how else they can get their wins. Going off last season as well, I'm gonna have to pick the unders here. Yeah, two wins, I reckon.
Yeah, great point. Great point. I'm also not a believer in Adam Uze. I don't think he's a good coach. I don't know, maybe he's just there as a transitional sort of coach, and then once they're ready to sort of surge, they'll move off from him, which I hope they do for the sake of the club. But as a Richmond fan, I'm quite content, honestly. Like absolutely no expectations going into this year. If you
Yeah.
win a game, it's huge. You're sitting on three premierships less than a decade ago. For me, if I'm a Richmond fan, I'm actually the happiest fan because there's absolutely no expectations. Like even for every other team, there's some expectation. For this team, there's no expectation. You can only
Yeah.
really win. So yeah, if
Mm.
you're going to be bad, be really bad. So I really agree with the way Richmond's gone about this rebuild. And yeah, I'd be more optimistic as a Richmond fan than those teams hovering around the eight that just can't get in. Right.
Yeah.
So moving on to the Saints, their win total is 9.5. The juice is on the over. It's come down from 10.5 a couple months ago. They went 11-12 last year, finished in 12th. Again, quite mediocre. Cass, where are you going?
Um, yeah, this one was sort of tough to decipher. I just don't think they have the capability up forward, especially now that Membry's gone as well, who was their second highest goal kicker last year. I haven't seen anything promising from Max King. In all the seasons that he's played, I haven't really seen anything like his brother can deliver. I'm sure they'll do well in the middle, and that's probably where they'll get most their, you know, clearances from. But yeah, I don't know. It's just they've lost battle as well, so they've just got Wilkie back in defense, so they've taken a hit there as well. They've got a good quality coaching line. I think Ross Lyon is a really good coach, and he's got assistant coaches as well, like Robert Harvey. Yeah, but there's only so much you can do with coaches. And yeah, they've thrown a bunch of offers around at
Mm.
TDK and Callahan, insane deals. So not really sure who they're after or what they're after here. I'm just going on the unders. Yeah, don't have much for it, but yeah, hopping on the unders here.
That's fair. Give me over 9.5 wins for St Kilda. Not with a bunch of confidence. It's St Kilda. It's Ross Lyon is I'm going to say he's the best coach in the league. They just find a way to grind out sort of wins. They're so good defensively usually. Yeah, so this is a bet on Ross Lyon.
Mm,
St Kilda, yeah, as a club, they're not in a great spot. Again, like one of those teams hovering around the eight in the last few years. Um, they have a decent some young players come in like Filippo and like Owens and things like that. Guys like that. King is the biggest what if player. He's every year he's like, oh, maybe this is the year that King
yeah.
takes over the league, and then he doesn't. He gets injured. But yeah, I just think it's a bet on the coaching. 9.5. Can they get to 10 wins? Probably. Is it good if they get to 10 wins as a club? Probably not. But yeah, Ross Lyon's just too good of a coach not to win 10 games. So yeah, remember they cut up Geelong right at the end of last season
Mm.
at Marvel. That was one of the most impressive performances I've seen offensively. So give me the over 9.5 for the Saints with not too much conviction. All right, moving on to the final Victorian team, the Western Bulldogs. Their win totals at 12.5. The juice is on the under. They went 14-9 last year, finished in sixth. They lost to Hawthorn in the elimination final. So yeah,
Elimination, yeah.
the first final. And so for this one, I'm gonna go under 12.5. They went 13-11 ATS last year, so above average, but they're just they've just been experiencing injury carnage, really. So yeah, give me the unders here. They're gonna slide out of the eight. I just feel like this is one of those years where it's just gonna go from bad to worse for the Bulldogs. I feel like it's been coming. They've sort of been there and abouts the last few years. This might be Bever's last year. It sort of looks like it's going that way. I feel bad for Bont because he's one of the better players in the comp, who's just been sort of shafted. Um, but I feel like, he got his premiership when he was a young player. So I just feel like this team's sort of primed to slide down the ladder and miss the eight. Where are you going?
Yep, exactly the same. I think they're well on their way to dropping out of the eight. I like their midfield mix with Riley Sanders, Matt Kennedy's come into the team. Um, so I think they'll have a really good run through there. Sam Darcy, we know, is incredibly dangerous. I think he'll perform really well up forward. Um, but yeah, I think they'll miss the eight this year. Liam Jones is getting old down back, and it seems a bit unfit. Tends to get injured a little bit. But yeah, I'm going with the unders as well. Going with the unders here.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I don't hate that at all. So that rounds out our picks for the Victorian team. So I had five overs and five unders. So pretty stock standard. How many did you have?
I think I had 5 and 5 as well.
Yeah, five and
I didn't
five.
check.
So
Yeah.
um, we'll go through which teams we think made the eight last year that's going to drop out, and those who weren't in the eight last year that's going to come in. So for me, um, I said last week Sydney and Port are going out, and along with this week, the Western Bulldogs are going out. So they're my three teams going out, and coming in is Collingwood. I feel like we're going to do enough to make the eight. Melbourne, and of course, my beloved Adelaide Crows. Who are your teams?
I think, well, I said last week Port Adelaide was going to fall out of the eight. Um, I think Western Bulldogs will fall out of the eight and Collingwood will replace them.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think that's about it. And then obviously Adelaide will replace Port Adelaide. Yeah,
Obviously, Adelaide.
obviously.
All right, wonderful. All right, so next week we're going to be coming out with the opening round lines for all four of those games, coming out with our picks, and then it will be round one after that. We'll be coming out with five picks each. We'll break down all the games, but we'll come out with five picks each, and then track our ATS record for the whole season. As I said last year, we were 57% against the spread last year, which is pretty hard to do. So we'll see how we go this year. Closing thoughts, Cuss.
Oh, we're so close to the start of the season. I'm so excited.
So close to hearing Joel Selwood commentate games. Can't wait.
Yeah, beautiful.
As a reminder, please leave a like on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on our socials. And until next time, we'll see you later.